In what way did being secluded help you?
I'd say, first of all, I think it gave me more time to really it made me think more about myself and my relationship with God.
Okay.
Sometimes as well, because people know that you're a Christian, there's a lot of eyes on you, so it doesn't necessarily give you the chance to grow, because when you make a mistake, it's like, oh, but did you not say you're a Christian?
Florence?
I found that uni was a grounds of like exposure for me. Like it exposed a lot of things about myself that I was just like, I didn't even know that, you know, I was struggling with this.
Have any mistakes that you made that you care to share? Because you can go first.
Ladies first.
Mistakes. Mm-hmm. There were a few mistakes, actually. I would say one of the things that, if I was to go back, I would change is not living in isolation. Because sometimes we've spoken about expectations was one of the reasons why, if I was going through a struggle or a challenge, I'd be like, you know what, just keep it tight-lipped. Don't keep it to yourself, because if someone hears of it, they're going to judge you, and then before you know it, I find myself in a place where it's difficult for me to, like, you know, I'm struggling with my personal relationship with God. So that's one of the things that I would be mindful of. And also I would be mindful of the kind of, like, you know, company. Like I said, friends are good, but sometimes oversharing with friends as well is, like, you know, because they'll say, yeah, but, you know, you thought, you know, and then it's just kind of like, I don't want to be remembered for certain things. You know, I just want to keep going, because we're all struggling. But, you know, and the challenge was that I may have spoken about mine, but maybe Yaa will not speak about hers. And then before you know it, I'm the scapegoat. So it's that's
exactly. Thank you for sharing.
I think mine is oversharing as well, and just lack of discernment in certain areas. Just like
what is discernment for someone who doesn't?
I think, in my understanding, discernment is a spiritual perception of knowing what is from God and what is not from God. Because sometimes it's easy to know what is good and what is bad, but sometimes it's harder to know what is good and what is God. So that's how I understand, like, the spirit behind everything. And I think for me, it was it's like certain people that you let in your room. Like, you can have a group of friends, like, oh, let's get ready at mine, and it's not necessarily like they're bad people, but your room is like your safe space. It's those little things that we don't really, I don't want to say deep, but we don't really like deep, is what sometimes can catch us out. So, like, who are you letting in your room? Who are you telling this to? And how much do you share? Sometimes it's not that don't say anything, it's like the quantity that you share is really important as well. So I think for me, that would probably be a mistake. So now the Holy Spirit is really teaching me to zip it.
And just to add, sharing is not just like talking, it's like the boundaries you establish as well. Because when you really think about it, like, you know, talking about friends coming over, at 1 a.m. in your parents' house, you're not going to be having someone in your room, like, you know, so what are you doing realistically? So it's like establishing those boundaries and knowing that just because I live on my own or just because I'm alone doesn't mean that, like, you know, I can break the rules, sort of. And also finances as well, establishing boundaries around them finances. Because sometimes I could be like, you know, it's been a difficult day. Now I find myself at a shopping centre.
Let me treat myself.
And then the next day I'm eating Indomie, like, you know. No, so boundaries,
I hear you. Thank you. No.
I'd say definitely lack of discernment, the oversharing, and I'd say also certain people I allowed myself to hang around. For example, like, for example, when I think of it, it's like association can really damage you or it can benefit you. Like, for example, when I think about the definition of purity, it talks about freedom from contamination or adulteration. So right there, I think, for example, lack of discernment, if you're not allowing yourself to be engulfed in the word and in prayer, you cause yourself to go anywhere kind of thing. Especially in uni, you can go down any type of route. There's new age, there's all sorts of things that we don't even know. So honestly, I think definitely lack of discernment and oversharing, especially. I think even with your friends, yes, you can have your friends there, but it's not everything that you need to tell them. Sometimes God can even stop you from saying some things to them. Not necessarily saying because they're bad, but sometimes, as Yaa was saying, that the spirits behind these people, as us as humans, we're only channels that God uses. Or it can either be a channel for God or the enemy. So we definitely have to be careful with that.
So what influence you think, like maybe for someone going to uni, what would you advise them with regards to friendships? Like how important are friendships in maintaining integrity at uni?
I would say having the same principles, because for me, when I was starting uni, friendships was not on my mind, to be fair. And then I found myself in PENSA, and it was kind of like the people that I met were very grounded. We shared the same principles. So I thought, okay, and sometimes they would actually call me and say, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing that? So just being vigilant of, like, you know, when you have conversations with people, you can know, okay, we're on the same page. We're not on the same page. Just sort of friendships.
Thank you.
To add on to that, I was going to say, give yourself time. Just because you've met someone the first time and they complimented your hair doesn't mean that you guys are friends. I think sometimes we need to give ourselves time and also give people time to prove themselves.
Exactly.
I think we're really quick to like, oh, just because I've seen you at like 2 ACS events, now we're friends. Exactly. So give people the chance to show you who they are. And also, I think friends are important as well, because sometimes when you're isolated, you become idle, and that's when the enemy can come into your ears and say a lot of things. So they are good. Like, you should invest in good friendships, but like I was saying, give them time.
That's the key, though. Quality friendships.
Yeah.
As I was saying, definitely quality friendships. It's not that you should be friends with everyone. For example, in uni, there's some people that you may know on your course, but may only be beneficial for you on your course. I think sometimes I've heard Apostle Joshua, he speaks about being strategic with your friendships. And I think I used to hear that, I think strategic. But when you actually think about it within your life, especially in uni, you're networking and meeting new people. So you definitely have to. So I think different types of friends can either lead you away from being serious with uni or actually taking it serious. So definitely plays a big part.
Just to add, you're probably, you know, I don't know if whoever's watching are going to get the whole friendship thing straight away. But there's no point in, like, you know, beating yourself up and saying I'm going to isolate because I don't have friends or anything. Just keep praying about it, and you know, you find yourself in a space where
and like put yourself out there. I think that's really important. Like, if it's something that you didn't know that you would enjoy. So for example, like, let's say for societies, I think that's why they are there. Like, if you enjoy like anime or enjoy whatever, and you can join, as long as it's not compromising with your faith, you should put yourself out there and join and see like the amount of people that you meet and all that stuff. And I was gonna say something, I forgot. So
it's okay if I add on to that.
Yeah, of course.
I was gonna say, in terms of putting yourself out there, I think some people tend to do this thing of where they pray for something but they don't put any action behind it. So many people may pray for friends, but you can't be stealing your comics, expect someone to come and knock like, oh hi, the Lord told me this. Like, things like that can happen. It's true. Things like that can happen. But at the same time, don't just rely on that. Because don't box God, how God can use you. Because the fact that I met Yaa and Yade in a club is crazy. Honestly.
Of course. This is fantastic. Exactly. And I just want to say, like, I wanted to know a bit about the pressures as a guy on campus. Is the pressure? We'll talk about the differences in pressure maybe among the women and then the man, but we'd love to hear like some of the pressure. Like, do you feel like with guys it's more of a pressure to fit in? Do you feel like guys tend to be more isolated? Yeah, definitely. Pressures with girls as well.
I first start with, for example, there's some people that I know, they've come from secondary school, for example, not really fitting in. So when they come to uni, they're like, okay, this is my chance to fit in. And I think sometimes you can meet some people that you may think are good friends to you in a sense, but then they can kind of draw you down a path that may not be the best for you. For example, I can say sport, football. Many of the football uni teams, they do some forfeits and they may indulge in some things that are not aligning to what you believe in.
Yeah.
So for example, sometimes, let's say football or basketball teams, they may use ways of celebrating, like as in going to clubs, doing these things, and some players might do things with girls who you never know. And like I said, that thing of association be damaging to you. It's that you can see these things. If you continue to allow yourself to see it, it can cause for temptation to grow within you.
That's right.
And I'd say definitely for me, I think that's when I began to realize that association is one of the key ways I can get closer to God.
It's true.
And especially as a guy, I think a lot of guys within this day and age and generation tend to struggle with lust the most, especially. So you definitely have to be mindful in what you're actually doing.
Yeah. You'll be surprised, women too.
Yeah.
I knew like a couple of people that, like, you know, from experience as well in conversation, just theirs was not alcohol. It was like, you know, just purely flirting because, you know, I have the attention, so why not?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you know, trying to close up that void that, you know, feeling it inside. But yeah.
Also, something's popped into my mind. I'd say mental health as well, especially for men. It's definitely neglected in uni because I'd say during my first year in uni, I think that's where I realized, like, wow, I was really experiencing that kind of thing. And I think having my family and friends there to support me made me realize that me experiencing these things doesn't mean I'm weak necessarily.
Exactly.
For example, even the shortest verse in the Bible says Jesus wept.
Yeah.
So it makes me realize that, okay, since Jesus was able to experience and go through that emotion and not stay in that low place, it shows me that I can go through that and rise up again.
Yeah.
So, and definitely having that male bond and male friendships, even female friendships as well, it kind of, they're there to support you and show different, I'd say, dimensions of God in a sense.
Yeah.
So
I love that you guys are saying this because I remember at uni, I think in my first or second year, there was actually, I went to the University of Kent and there was actually a student who, they were diabetic. Why are you laughing? They were actually diabetic and they actually like died in their room and no one found them. I know no one found them until I think a few days later. So I think to anyone watching, I think it's important to just know that community, like you guys are saying, is important. You need to have people around you. And like you guys have been saying, it's a matter of prayer and discernment. And I believe that any prayer spoken in faith, God hears. So
God does, you know, sometimes there's this belief that, you know, mental health is not real, or God doesn't, you're a Christian, you're not supposed to feel that way or feel that way. But it's all a lie as well from the enemy, you know. If you speak up to someone that you trust about it, these things can be, you know, sorted out. Yeah, because it's all mind games.
Exactly. And just going back to isolation, did you guys find, because I found this when I was at uni, that when you tend to isolate yourself from people, especially Christian people, or like the fellowship of the saints, the enemy has more leverage to speak lies into you. Yeah.
And that's when your confidence goes down as well. Yeah.
And I think it's even worse when you're struggling with your identity because that's the window for the enemy to come and be telling you what you are not or what you are.
Okay, so the next question I have is for you, Florence. So this is with regards to being a uni student on campus and, you know, that safety that we have. You can choose your friends, you can decide who you're hanging out with and stuff. And then obviously going into the real world. How did you navigate that transition?
It was quite difficult, because we all graduated, everyone went their separate ways, and now you have your full-time job, and the transition from having the flexibility to wake up to go to lectures, or sometimes choose not to go to lectures, is then going to working full-time is it's not too difficult, but it's a bit of a difficult transition. And in terms of navigating that with faith, is then now you have to, because it depends on what your work contract is saying as well. When if you have to work some Sundays, you don't have to work some Sundays. And for me, that sings in church as well. Some Saturdays I'm like rehearsal, so it was quite hard. But I think at the end of the day, I still kept in touch with my friends, so it still did help.
Sure. I was actually going to say, as you were talking, I know people that I served in uni with, who I guess are nowhere to be found now, kind of slipped away. So from faith. So what kind of things did you do to make sure that, you remained in the faith?
I would say that church church helped me remain in my faith. So I kept growing in the church, and also again, because I had good friends at university developed. So from our society and stuff, we did keep in touch, and sometimes we would just talk about our experiences, what's going on, what's not going on. So yeah, but mainly church. So just ensuring that I wasn't missing out, because sometimes I miss one Sunday, and then it's just like, okay, I need to get into the group.
I hear you. Controversial question time. Before we move on to the last question, unfortunately, what do you say to that person who says that you don't need to go to church to be a Christian?
Oh, it's not true. It's not true, because gathering of the saints is very important. Sometimes, even when you're far away from what you would say your relationship with God is, there's something about being amongst the saints that brings the fire out of you, that keeps you going. It helps a lot. So I would not encourage not going to church, not going to fellowship. I would say even on Zoom, if you have to put your join and leave the camera on there, and then do whatever you want to do, it's still better than not joining at all.
To add on to what she said as well, also, I'd say there are some messages that you can hear from church that you may not hear elsewhere, because you tend to see that genuine churches that have a foundation in the scripture, they're spirit-led. So, for example, I can say that you can experience some things, yes, by not going to church, but there are some things that you cannot access from God if you don't go to church. And I think it also gives you that kind of sense of having that home, that family. So I could say for myself, back in my hometown, that church there was truly a family to me. Even me coming to uni, they supported me financially, mentally, and all of these things. So it really just showed me just having that family, not just outside of church, but in church also. It got to a point where it's like I couldn't even differentiate blood from the actual people. So truly, it showed me that love, that, like I said before, sacrificial love within that.
Love it.
So
I agree what they said, and I think I'll just add on to the fact that spiritually you need it. You need that spiritual backing. It's like when Paul was in prison, and James and Paul were in prison, but James died because the church didn't stand and pray for him. But when the church stood and prayed for Paul because they heard that James had died, that's how the angel basically came to rescue them. So it's like you need that intercessors to back you up, and sometimes when you're down, that's when you need those people to hold you up. So you not going to church, you're not building that bond. But for example, if I hardly come to church and I'm like, oh guys, I'm struggling with this, can you help me? As much as they'll pray for me, the energy is we don't even know you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think spiritually you need that backing as well. So I'll definitely encourage going to church.
That's right. Yeah.
I was also going to say, I think that atmosphere, the atmosphere within church is like no other, to be honest with you. I think even recently I went to a church event, right? And even just me being there, I'm not normally the type to go into the middle, dance and go around. And they said everyone run around the church. And weirdly enough, I just felt this prompted in me to just run around the church. And I even heard somewhere that sometimes someone seeing you run could even be a sign of deliverance from them, if that makes sense. So honestly, church can really open your eyes in the physical and the spiritual. So
Amazing.
I think of it as a cover, so if you're under a cover, imagine it's raining, and then you've got an umbrella. When you take it away, you're gonna get wet. So I think of it as spiritual covering over me. So I have to be there.
Yeah. I hear
sense.
you. I hear you. Thank you, guys. And second to last question is for the two of you. So obviously, knowing that your time at uni is coming to an end, what plans have you put in place to make sure that your fire still remains even after you've left? Because uni can be a different place. Like you're on another level. And actually, me having left uni a few years ago, I still want to go back to the way that my fresh relationship with God was, back then. So, what plans do you guys both have in place?
I think mine is definitely going back into church. It's kind of like God has taken you away from that place for you to grow. So now it's like go and show them what you've learned. For me personally, well, anyway, like go and show them what you learn. And be like avail yourself to things. I think first, like sometimes I have to be forced to do things like, oh, it's reading. They say you read the Bible today, and I'm like, yeah, but you didn't tell me on time, like stuff like that. But I really understood the importance of just saying yes and just obedience and changing your schedule, because I mostly pray at like 12 midnight. But when I started placement, the fact that I have to wake up early is like you have to change everything. So that has already started preparing me for things like that. But it's not been easy because sometimes the sleep just wants to take you. So I think also just having grace, like giving yourself grace, because God understands. And just be more intentional.
I hear you. Thank you guys so much. Last words. Tell us a bit about what PENSA is. Maybe one person can go. So, what is PENSA? And what PENSA did you go to whilst you were on campus, or what PENSA do you go to as you're on campus? And why would you invite someone to join a society?
So PENSA is a Christian fellowship that derives from the Church of Pentecost. It's mostly in like every uni, well, most unis. And why I would encourage PENSA, people to come to PENSA, is that the question? Yeah. I think it's good to have a community and have like-minded people, especially in uni, because like we're saying, it can get really isolating. And sometimes from that you can birth out your gifts and also build spiritual capacity, because it's really nice to see, like, as a president, people come to me and like we've had like 40-minute prayer sessions and stuff, and people are like, I've never prayed for that long. So just stretching people and like them knowing that, oh, we can do this. And it's like sometimes when you're praying and like you go silent and you still see people praying, it's like you get that energy to still continue praying because you're around that atmosphere. So I think just for spiritual growth and
Sure. Thank you so much. But I think I'd like to hear from both of you.
Like you were saying, I think it also, in terms of within uni especially, it kind of has, you have that kind of routine, if that makes sense. For example, within Bournemouth, I don't just do PENSA, but I also sometimes attend this church called Citygate, and they tend to have Tuesday student nights every time. I think sometimes even when that I'm going through places where I'm a bit down, I think I go there and it still uplifts me. And having that society and people around you, it can also help you, because then you're also able to learn. You also, for example, within our PENSA, we tend to ask people that, would you like to lead this Bible study? So it's already pushing out people into outside of their comfort zones, and sometimes even revealing gifts they didn't know they had. So,
thank you.
I would say, if not for anything at all, just join PENSA for the fellowship of it, because it's not just Bible reading or prayers alone. It's also, for me, it felt like family, it felt like home. And fellowshipping was great. I got to meet different people, so particularly for fellowshipping, just join and then see where and how far God takes you.
Amazing. Just want to say thank you, three. Thank you. It's been an amazing conversation, and I know that someone has been blessed. Not someone. Many people have been blessed by some of the things that you said. So thank you guys for being so honest and open about your experiences.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we hope to have you here again one day.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem. Thank you so much. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we have. Please stay tuned for more episodes, which will be released on Monday at 6 p.m. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and engage with us in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. This is Deep Dive Discourse. I'm your host, Sedi, and we'll see you next week. Welcome. This is the Deep Dive.